Special breaking news edition of the Sumer Sports Show. Sam Bruckhouse with me now, Lindsay Rhodes, to react to the shocking news to me about Baltimore firing John Harbaugh after 18 seasons as head coach. It's the end of an era in Baltimore. It's going to be the start of a new era in Baltimore. And Sam, seeing as how we just did an entire show yesterday that was about the coaches that were fired to that point, the 6 that had already been fired, and the replacement candidates. And we were underwhelmed by the replacement candidates that were already being mentioned for those jobs. All of these different points together make this particularly shocking to me. I understand that there was like buzz all season long towards the end of the year that this might be the end of the road, but I never thought that they would actually go through with it because I didn't see a better option out there. So
yeah, to illustrate how shocking this is, John Harbaugh becomes probably the best coach on the market immediately, and the Ravens job becomes the best job on the market, which typically would indicate that there's a marriage there. There's a reason why that's the case on both sides. And that's because this team has been really, really good. And frankly, sans Lamar missing a couple games, they're probably a playoff team. The statistics for the most part indicate that. 2 weeks ago, we broke down basically the way that they played this year, where they sit in terms of the advanced analytics. They're very, very good at running the ball. One of the best teams in the league at running the ball and stopping the run. They have not been very good at passing. Shocker, shocker. Their MVP quarterback is hurt and missed several games. And they haven't been good at stopping the pass, which was the problem last year with Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator, under the purview of John Harbaugh, of course. But whenever you have, alignment in that, it's a really good job where you get an MVP quarterback and a lot of defensive talent, and you have a coach that you thought could manage it. It's really shocking that they parted ways. That being said, 18 years is a lot of years. And so maybe it's just too much for both sides. And maybe it's time for both sides to go their separate ways. You see this a lot more in college than you see in the pros, really. But we've seen it with Andy Reid, I suppose, is the most recent one, who kind of in his prime was let go. But it wasn't after an 8-8 season, was it? I think they had won 3 games the year prior. So it's a very interesting and very confusing move. I'm sure we'll hear more here shortly.
Yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath for all of the details surrounding this. I've heard this framed as a him or Lamar thing. I've heard like buzz surrounding that. I don't know any of that to be true. And so, I'm reaching out to my networks and, we'll see what comes out in the reporting that will immediately follow this. One thing that I just thought of, because I agree with you that he becomes the automatic most attractive candidate on the market for other jobs if he doesn't want to just, hit pause for a minute and kind of catch his breath and then go back into the cycle next year. But assuming that he is interested in coaching this season, the fact that he is obviously by far and away the most attractive candidate to the other for the other vacancies kind of says something about the way that this went down and makes you question whether or not this is the right move for Baltimore. I also wonder if there are any franchises out there who have not fired their head coach and maybe otherwise would not have fired their head coach that might be thinking about firing their head coach now because somebody of the caliber of John Harbaugh is suddenly available. Like, we might not just be talking about the vacancies and John Harbaugh. Does he go to the Raiders or does he go to the Chiefs? I mean, not the Chiefs. Does he go to the Giants? Does he go to the, Titans or Falcons? It might suddenly be a team that we're not even thinking of right now.
Well, I think the interesting part too is allegedly the Browns have put out an interview request for Todd Monken as well. So I don't think anyone really expected this move as of 2 or 3 hours ago, given that they were, making requests for multiple people who are working under John Harbaugh. Just to put this in perspective, like you mentioned, this is one of the most accomplished head coaches. I just want to put that in perspective a little bit. John Harbaugh has 18 seasons, 316 games, 1 Super Bowl, 1 conference championship, 12 playoff berths. There's only 3 or 4 people that are even remotely in that range. The closest are Mike Tomlin with 19 seasons, 327 games. Very similar, 1 Super Bowl, 12 playoff berths. 2 conference championships. Obviously, we've had similar discussions as we're now having about John Harbaugh with Mike Tomlin. Then you look at Sean Payton, also 18 seasons, slightly over 300 games, 1 Super Bowl, 1 conference championship, 10 playoff berths. Those are 2 of the best head coaches in the league. So the pedigree's there. If you want to get deeper into it and you want to look at, at the spread returns, which Vegas technically bakes in coaching strength to their lines. And so this is like any in-game excess that someone has gotten. John Harbaugh is slightly positive. Mike Tomlin at the spread position is about plus 1.1. John Harbaugh is about plus 0.4. Andy Reid is plus 2.1. And Sean Payton is plus 2.6. So he is performing about as well as you would expect a team to go into a game. The thing is, when you have a really good team, it takes a lot to manage it. It takes a lot to manage personalities like Derrick Henry, who thinks he should have the ball all the time because he should. Lamar Jackson, who thinks he should have the ball all the time because he should. Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, who have been really effective offensive players, and defensive players that start from Terrell Suggs and Ray Lewis back in the day, defensive player of the years, to now defensive player of the year candidates like Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton. And here's kind of the bottom line on this. And there was a lot of discussion about this yesterday with regards to the Ravens roster construction, is that this team was, and assumptively always will be under this administration, from the ownership down, a build and develop team. Like the guys I just mentioned, other than Roquan, for the most part, they drafted and developed. Really, the only ones that it was Roquan and it was Derrick Henry, who they brought on in recent years. But other than that, pretty much everyone on their team is developed. And the key part of that development is John Harbaugh's system.
Yeah, this is also a team that's known for stability. And I mean, part of the reason is that you've got the same head coach for 18 seasons and they've had success. And so there's not much reason for turnover. But like in the front office, there is so much stability, right? Like they had Newsom there for so long, who was very good at drafting and developing and trained Eric DaCosta. And Eric DaCosta took over that role and has had success until now. Like this season's kind of the first time that I've heard whispers of people being unhappy and wanting to go in a different direction with just about everything in the organization. But it really is fascinating. This has been one of the strongest and most stable organizations for as long as I can remember. I've been covering the league since 2008, pretty much just solely this league. And I feel like that's been the case the entire time, that there's just been, whether they were particularly good, one of the best in the NFL, which they have been consistently, or whether or not they had fallen out of that conversation to a degree. This was a team that really always felt very stable. And this is the first time that I can even recall having like instability there and questions about what it's going to be like moving forward. I'm really, really shocked by this. Yeah. And I know people in Baltimore have been talking about this all season long, but it's like Tomlin in Pittsburgh, right? Like there's talk, but then you're like, you're not going to do it. And it's also so hard for me to believe that it really came down to a missed field goal, like that they were right there. They could be preparing for a wild card game right now so easily. From a coaching standpoint, they were in position to be there in that one game, right? Like the kick just doesn't go in and suddenly the season is over. And I will say, I love that his lasting image, the last image, is him walking off the field with Tyler Loop standing next to him. It feels like a really strong leadership picture.
Right. And you think of those photos, those pictures, the Harbaugh recent era, the Harbaugh Lamar era, becomes a conglomeration, a collage of those pictures. You have the Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, basically the fumble on the goal line against the Chiefs 2 years ago. And then you have a snowflake causing you to not get a 2-point conversion against the Buffalo Bills last year. And then you have a crazy, windy, potentially blessed by the Lord himself kick going, wide of the goalpost. And that leads me to believe that there must have been some market change or some market, difference maybe between this year and previous years that they saw that they didn't like. Friend of the show, Tej Seth of the Stats and Scheme podcast, comments on YouTube. It felt like the team came out flat too many times in their biggest games of the season. it's difficult when you don't have a quarterback or when you have a quarterback that's hurt. And so there's so many factors in this that you can kind of build into the one season. I mean, this was a 10-win ELO team when it really comes down to it. So it's like they were just on the borderline. And you think of any good coach, and I mean, Sean Payton had how many 7-9, 8-8 seasons in New Orleans, and it just felt like John Harbaugh hadn't had those. And I guess that's the real kind of juxtaplexation I'm doing in my head.
And that's, I mean, in all fairness, Tage could be referencing years past, right? Like he could be referencing the one and done playoff seasons, and the fact that, you know, for so long we had this conversation, framed it around Lamar Jackson, like Lamar Jackson can't win a playoff game, right? And so, but you know, who else was there the whole time was John Harbaugh. So since have already brought Tage into the conversation, and thank you, Tage, for being with us, I would love to bring the other half of the Stats and Scheme newsletter into this conversation, Mr. Sean Syed. Before we get into the details of what you saw with Baltimore this year, what was your reaction to this news?
Yeah, part of me was obviously stunned, but part of me was like, all right, you know, what's been 18 years? Like, unfortunately, sometimes, like we talked about it on the earlier show this week, like sometimes time just runs its course a little bit. And Sam and I, you know, we certainly talked a little bit after you start to see some of the kind of like the writing about, oh, like you're hearing about this about Lamar or his practice habits and stuff like that. It's like, all right, things are starting to come out a little bit. Like if you miss the playoffs, or maybe there's something that's going to happen here. So it's really interesting. And then now my mind first goes, of course, as we talked, like Jesse Minter is someone that I think of as one of the top candidates. Is it just Baltimore saying, let's kind of keep it, you know, within the family a little bit? Is it them saying we need to go totally different? And then now do we get one of the like kind of up in the air head coaching situations where they say, we're letting go of our guy. We want to have Harbaugh in here. So like my dream pairing is Lamar Jackson and Mike McDaniel. Obviously don't want anyone to get fired, but I would be fascinated to see just like what team is like, you know, maybe Harbaugh would be able to help us out, but a tough day for the culture coaches, as Sam would say.
Repeat that one more time. Your dream pairing is what?
Lamar Jackson and Mike McDaniel. Can we get that? Can we get that going?
I mean, look, you said a couple good things there that I want to highlight. I think number one is the Jesse Minter comment, which, you know,
that makes the most
Stavsky,
sense.
throw that on the Chiron, like retweet it with that. If that's the move, because when you said that, I said they're a draft and develop team. On like behind closed doors, they're also a hire and develop front office. Very well known that they like to keep their own talent in-house. And, you know, Joe Ortiz and a lot of that crew was one of the first ones to go join Jim Harbaugh as well, including, you know, Jesse Minter, who had spent time with Mike McDonald, who was the defensive coordinator there for years, and so forth and so on. And so if that really is what is occurring, and I believe Jesse Minter's a coach's son too. So it's like, there's a kind of a culture around that, I suppose. And so like, if that's really what's about to happen, they're just going to go hire Jesse Minter and this is going to be over, shut and done. That's an interesting move, certainly, but it didn't seem like that, at least before you said it, Sean, to me, that was abundantly clear. What are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
I have no idea. I'm literally just processing all of this in real time. And I mean, Jesse Minter is the name that pops to mind immediately of the candidates that we talked about yesterday, just because of his relationships in Baltimore. But then also, is this the first shoe to fall in Baltimore? Or is there more to come? Is DaCosta still there? Like what are we looking at moving forward? Do we even know? Because by the way, we just literally hopped on air. And so I'm trying to kind of keep track of like what's coming out in the news. I don't know what else has been reported surrounding this. So Stopsky, keep me honest behind the glass while you're also calling everyone that we know who might know anything with regards to the Ravens. This is a fascinating move for me. I would love to hear more about you expounding on the Mike McDaniel thoughts, because he's literally who I thought of actually in reverse when I was saying earlier on the show that there might be people who had not fired their coaches who were now going to fire their coaches because suddenly John Harbaugh was available, if they thought that they could get John Harbaugh. And that was, I mean, he's the obvious guy, right? That like was sort of on the fence there. Wouldn't that be interesting if they flipped? Though I don't think that Miami would be a particularly appealing job for John Harbaugh. There's so many different directions to go in here. I need to stop talking and let you guys go.
I wonder. So for one, what does Harbaugh want to do? I assume he wants to still coach. He's a young man. He can still do it for sure. I do wonder how many of these organizations kind of. I would think a little more on the same line of thinking like this, like real, like organizational figure is going to be kind of a key part that we want to have here. I think of McDaniel and Lamar together just because like the offensive fit, it would just be like unbelievably entertaining. Like, is it going to work? I don't know. Is McDaniel the guy you want to have the head coach? You know, that's your choice. But like, I want to watch that offense happen. So now we start to look at, all right, Chad Alexander, assistant GM with the Chargers, has a connection with Harbaugh. If you are the Giants, maybe for example, where you're at a situation where I think you are looking for really like different organizational kind of building, like, do you say, all right, well, what if Harbaugh comes into you and says, I need to have my GM? Like you have a similar situation maybe to a Liam Cohen last year, where now we're moving on from what would look like a holdover GM to bring in the head coach. Like that's an interesting situation in Tennessee, right? Where you have Borgonzia, I'm pretty sure leading the search there, right? So I would be really surprised if they moved on from him, but I'm just fascinated to see what do organization heads decide. Like, is this a situation where we value this guy so highly and his history and what he's been able to do that, you know, we are totally going to change paths. So I'm interested. I'm entertained. I'm absolutely entertained.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of great comments. So I want to do a quick lightning round while we're doing that. First, Lindsay, does this make Harbaugh the best coaching hire coming up in this cycle?
I think obviously, and by far and away. I mean, Sean, you were here yesterday and we were like, like there weren't a lot of people that we were just really emphatically, this is very different. It felt very different yesterday talking about the coaching candidates than it did last year when you have a Ben Johnson and there's a couple of people that are clearly like, it is their turn. Let's go give them a shot. We're excited about seeing what this looks like, whether it pans out or not. Like they're obvious candidates. I feel like this is more of a, and I hate this word ever since we did the podcast about quarterbacks. It feels like a retread coaching cycle for the most part. There's a couple of coordinators. They're going to get their first shot, probably Jesse Minter, a name that we already brought up. But other than that, it feels very retread heavy. And it doesn't feel like guys who had success the first time around and or are obviously going to have success as head coaches this time around. So Zach, that's a very long-winded way of saying, I think absolutely no doubt. The only thing that will change that is if he comes out and says, I'm going to take a minute. And just like, it's been 18 years in one place, and I'm going to take a season off and I'm going to spend some time with my family.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then Sean, Ace is chiming in, and this is something we've discussed at length. How much of this may stem from the fact that Harbaugh doesn't call plays, losing coordinators may be frustrating.
I definitely get that. And certainly, Ace, I think I have the bias towards play callers. Like I'm always going to admit that. I definitely have a blind spot, I think, for certain like organizational type figures that aren't always calling plays. I don't think that's the driving factor here. I think that, yeah, you're going to lose coordinators, but like you also are able to bring so many positive things. Harbaugh's involved in game plans. Like I'd be really surprised if he was like fully hands off, and obviously he's involved in game management and roster building and all those types of things. So I definitely feel that, where if he was calling plays, then you could point more directly to, okay, well, they're this ranked on offense, this ranked on defense, and that's a little bit more convenient for us. But Harbaugh's one of the like few just like structural figures where you look past some of those things. So I am interested, though, if we go down that line of thinking even further, does him not calling plays like make you wonder like, oh, is some team going to kind of talk themselves out of it? So like I said, I'm just so fascinated to see kind of what happens here. Like I need to start getting I need to update my feed, just see, all right, what's the news? Like what team is now interested in him? And like, they're going to make some sort of drastic move. I think he's going to have too much interest to say like, all right, I'm not going to kind of come back next year, because I think he will. We'll see. I think he'll have an offer on the table.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm sorry to jump in. Sean, I would love for you, as somebody who has watched Ravens tape this year, because there are people out there who do not think that this is outlandish at all. Is there anything in the, like Sam went through some of the data, were there signs in the tape that said this just isn't working? This is a coaching issue, possibly. And I know that you don't know why things are happening, but when you watch the tape, did it not feel like the Baltimore Ravens of years past for reasons that maybe felt inexplicable.
Yeah, I mean, you can point to different things like, all right, well, you're getting a little bit of step back on the offensive line. Of course, you have injuries at quarterback. Like some of your receivers, maybe they're a little bit more up and down than you hope. You think back to early in the season where the Lions just like run over the Ravens, just totally kind of take you out at that level. And then you point a little bit more to Ace's question. It's like, well, how much is obviously all of it is on Harbaugh's plate because he is the head coach. And therefore anything that happens that good and anything that has happened that is bad falls on his plate. But like it's not like, oh, well, he's calling the offense, but he's also responsible for so many different things. So this team underachieved, I think, like to my eyes. And I think if they made the playoffs, we might say, well, we could talk ourselves into them making a run and being the best team in the AFC. So it's hard, I think, sometimes to translate directly from, well, this is what's happening on the film to this is the head coach who's not calling the plays on either side of the ball's responsibility. But I just keep pointing to like, sometimes like time is time. Like this could end up as a negative for both parties. This could end up as a positive for both parties where it's like, are you going to have an 18-year run or like that long of a run with Harbaugh? Maybe not, but you could. All right, you're bringing in a new voice. You're seeing, maybe you're able to find a different way to move Lamar Jackson forward. You have a different offensive coordinator that's able to come in and then Harbaugh gets a fresh start. He's able to kind of build up with the new organization.
Yeah, there's so many things to like break down here on like top of the line. As you mentioned, he's like a structural figure. He's always had the answer to the offensive coordinator, the defense coordinator. I realize there's been discussions about Zach Orr, not being up to snuff. Last year, that was one of the better defenses in the league, and they improved as the year went on. But I think the real difference in this team, and this leads into a lot of questions we're getting, is Lamar just didn't look like Lamar this year. You mentioned that Lions game. Like, yes, the front is ran over, but also Lamar is getting hunted down by Jack Campbell in a way that we haven't seen. So we have our AI team working on athletic estimates at all times. And, we've seen dips in recent years, and he was slightly more productive on the ground than he was in the passing game. But I think you didn't see the level of scrambling through the middle of the pocket, outside of the tackles, and making those Lamar Jackson-esque plays. You saw a sliver of it in their final game, and frankly, that's what kept them in the game. But when it comes down to it, like Lamar just wasn't the same guy that he was prior to this year. So that leads us kind of into a bunch of these questions, team, which is like, Zach coming in, sorry to ask this last question. Zach, bring all the questions, man.
Yeah.
We want all the questions. But anyway, what is the impact on Lamar Jackson? Does he leave Baltimore? Does he want to go back home to Miami, Sean? May throw that in. Or we got another question. Have the Ravens chosen Lamar over Harbaugh? Maybe, as a coach and with his voice, he was reluctant to give Lamar another contract. Lindsay, what are your thoughts on like the Lamar, Baltimore, John Harbaugh relationship?
I don't know. So I've been reaching out to people who might have relationships there or have been around this more, because I'm reluctant to comment about it because I actually have not been around this team at all. And so I haven't watched that dynamic. I don't know. I feel like that is something that you want to talk about if you're really familiar with the dynamics underneath that or behind that relationship. But I do think, there's lots for us to think about before we get real hard and fast answers. Like Lamar did not look good this year. And I think that a lot of us just chalked it up to health, probably. Like I just assumed we knew he wasn't healthy. And I assumed that what we were seeing was the result of him not being healthy. If we find out later that it was the result of him not being healthy, but also that there's some sort of like frustration with the way that the plays are being called, or, I always felt like I have felt all season, like, but this isn't a John Harbaugh thing. This is a front office thing, frankly. Like I just thought that the takeaway from an offensive standpoint for them and for almost every other team that has a really high-end quarterback this offseason was go get wide receivers. Like they had Zay Flowers, who was very good, and then pulling up the wide receiver stats here, which you too can do if you're near a computer or a phone. Go to sumersports.com, click on data at the top, click on wide receiver, and then click on team and go to Baltimore Ravens. And you can see all of the Ravens stats, which I promptly scrolled out of to SumerBrain. Okay, so we have, from a target share standpoint, you have Zay Flowers at 28%, and then number 2 is Rashad Bateman at 11%, and DeAndre Hopkins at 9%. And there's a big drop off, right, between those two names and their production this year. and Zay Flowers. So you've got one wide receiver, and then you have the tight ends, who obviously they use much more in the passing game there. So that's valuable knowledge. So you've got Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who made that insane catch that even put them in field goal range. But I have been thinking that they needed to actually add to that wide receiver room for quite a while, and they just consistently have not done that. So I don't know if, is he frustrated about that and the direction that the offense was going? I don't know. There's so many question marks here that I just can't wait to find out the answers to, because on the surface, just it feels, and maybe this is like Pete Carroll in Seattle to a degree, where like the message just gets stale after a little while. And we know that does happen. And like you said earlier, we're more used to that happening in college after long periods of time. But I think Pete Carroll was a perfect example of that clearly happening in Seattle after a period of time. And maybe that's just what happened in Baltimore. Maybe they do need fresh eyes on all of this.
Baltimore's such a fantastic place to land now, though, right? Like, that's the spot that you want to be. Like, you get Lamar, you get like so many of those organizational pieces, still the high level figures, assuming a lot of them are able to stay. Like, you're in a division that I think that you feel like you can win, that you maybe should have won this year. Like, I want the interview list. I want to know who's going to be there, because I think that's a really, really just interesting place for an offensive mind, a defensive mind. Like, I don't know, I could see Brian Flores there. Like, you're spicing things up on defense, and now you have Lamar, who's already settled in there, so you don't have to worry about some of the like, oh, well, how's he going to be kind of around a younger quarterback type? So jumps to the top of the list. And then I also think about all the openings right now. Like, if you think about it, you feel like Harbaugh is probably an upgrade, like over whoever they had previously. Of course, it's now fired, but like, is he just going to have his pick? He can just be like, yeah, I'll take one of these 6. Like, I'll choose it on my own time. I'll make you wait for me. It's going to be fun to follow that part of the cycle.
I mean, we talked about Atlanta a lot. We sort of know that Atlanta wanted to hire Belichick a little bit. They have a GM opening as well, as Sean mentioned. Like, maybe if Harbaugh has his guy, like, this just becomes the Harbaugh show in Atlanta.
Do we have any Matt Ryan Harbaugh connections? Can we make some here for the Falcons? What does Matt Ryan think of Harbaugh? I want to know.
What does Sportology think of?
But Sam, I think you agree. Baltimore. I mean, it's a better spot to land than Atlanta, right? Like, you have the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, so that's a It's interesting.
But yeah, I can't see Harbaugh going to Atlanta just because of the lack of quarterback. Like, and
the rest of the list is not exactly screaming out, hey, I have a franchise quarterback in front of me. So I think that makes it a little bit harder as well. Unless, I mean, are you going to take a year off? And then when we start to look forward to the next year of people that maybe they're pre-fired, like, do we think that any of those teams are really going to have like a high level quarterback? So I think you're going to have to choose one of these teams.
Maybe. Maybe, or like we've both said, maybe there are other teams that come to the forefront, like Tampa Bay. Does Tampa Bay all of a sudden go, you know what, Bulls, it's been fun. Like, we would rather do this with Harbaugh or something like that. Maybe there you go. And on the same page. So
Tampa Bay, I mean, that'd be a good landing spot, I think, right? Just thinking about the organizational figures there, like, are certainly well respected. I think they have some holes, but they have the same positives being in the NFC South, I think, as the Falcons do. Now, Sam, I think talking about Baker, just a little bit of his fall off in the last kind of part of the season, that's something to monitor. But yeah, I guess I'd say I'd put Tampa Bay kind of above the other spots.
Well, look, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here, but like,
something you usually say before you're going to be a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't even a conspiracy at this point, but like, a lot of the discussion going into the last weeks that people, I mean, I was certainly confused by, was like the Lamar versus the Lamar versus Harbaugh stuff. And like, let us not forget that at the beginning of the season, there was a pretty big report confirming that the NFL colluded against Lamar getting a ton of guaranteed money. And if you dig any deeper into that, if you start to ask questions as an agent or a quarterback, or a family, I realize I don't think he actually is represented by anyone. And you start to come to find out that, your head coach was a major part of said collusion, or your general manager is maybe part of that collusion. Maybe that does cause a fallout. So just as we were like, spitballing here, that does come to mind that was a major part of the season. That was a major thing that had to be addressed by the NFL and the NFLPA. And I wonder if that's, part of this, and maybe then a reset just was needed. And so there's like so many, this is like particularly unique because there's so many variables to this that are short term, that are not necessarily the 18 years of Harbaugh, that are like the last 6 months that I think are very unique.
So I tend to think this is not just like if they made the kick and made the playoffs, he would have been safe. Obviously, if you win the Super Bowl, yeah, you're going to be safe. To me, it feels like, all right, this has been building, as you mentioned, some things start to, you hear them a little bit kind of as things are going. So, yeah.
John Harbaugh just released a statement that was put out. I'm scanning it quickly, and it just looks like appreciation and thanks, and all of this means so much to me. Nothing like noteworthy from a reportability standpoint. I did see there was either some reporting or Bishotti. It said that they met and that they had a really tough conversation, and some of the language that was used in something that I saw with regards to that made me think that it might have just been more football and less Lamar. Like to your point about like, hey, Lamar might be angry about this, or maybe I suppose, never mind. I'm fully speculating here, and that's probably irresponsible. It doesn't necessarily. I don't know. We'll find out. What do you think if he was to choose from the available jobs right now? Like looking just at the jobs that are available right now and not speculating on people who might be losing their jobs. What do you think is the most attractive job for him?
Wouldn't it be fun if he stayed in the division? I don't think the Browns are the most optimal choice there, but like it would just be entertaining, right? It would be good content if he joins the Browns. I still feel like, I mean, it's the Falcons, but I have a feeling we'll get maybe like a secret opening like in a week or two that may kind of flip that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the Falcons job though is like
the power structure. Does that bother you, Sam? Being a basketball guy?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm number one. I'm not convinced if I, as a veteran coach, look at Raheem Morris, who, I mean, we discussed it, and there's a clip on TikTok. Follow us on TikTok and YouTube and at Zoomer Sports of me saying it right then. It's like I think Raheem Morris did like a good enough job, really. And like if you're going to take that same approach, what is going to be your value add to that scenario? I think the best job for him would be the Giants, because you have experience keeping quarterbacks healthy. You have experience keeping a statuesque quarterback in Joe Flacco healthy. You have experience in a very mobile quarterback healthy across offensive coordinators, mind you. With Lamar Jackson, you've dealt with these personalities, and they have a defensive backbone that makes sense. And you've developed cornerbacks and navigated, poor cornerback situations, which is kind of the key there in New York right now. So I think like the Giants got to be the number one, because I think you could probably win the fastest. If you believe you're just an organizational guy, you're going to make it work. I think you could probably win the fastest with the young core and the veteran defensive core of the Giants.
If you're him, would you go there without your choice of GM? Because that obviously you have a similar kind of situation in Atlanta. Like I wonder if he says, all right, you're going to have to move on from your guy, or I'm going to bring in my guy. Like I'm curious how that kind of unfolds too.
It's an excellent question. And we rarely do discuss power structure. You mentioned Liam Cohen. That's the last real time we've discussed power structure. And often it's, there's 32 of these. And it is something that happens a lot more in basketball, where you kind of have to have alignment, or the general manager is the true president of operations, and et cetera, et cetera. But like as an 18-year veteran, you kind of got to be the guy. Like, I mean, that's basically how most of this has worked out. It seems like Sean Payton's the guy in Denver. It seems like Andy Reid is the guy in Kansas City. And it seems like Jim Harbaugh is the guy in LA. Obviously, they have people that they diligently trust and have, helped get in the case of Jim Harbaugh, like been a part of their development. But Atlanta, it's a blank slate. Assumptively. I mean, maybe it's not. Matt Ryan is alleged to be involved, but there's no CEO, there's no general manager, and you're the head coach. So, I mean, like if that's what you're looking for, Atlanta probably is the best job, I think.
Goodyear needing an OC though. Todd Monken on the market. I think he'll find his way into a job.
I can't get back. I mean, I know that there's more to it than the quarterback. You can find a quarterback and you're trying to set yourself up for the long term, but also, and I'm not meaning to indicate that he's like super old or anything like that, but like, it's not like you're you're not desperate for a job. You can just hit pause and say no. If you don't have a quarterback in place and the Falcons don't have a first round pick and they don't have any cap space, and like, I just don't understand. So you're essentially going into next year, unless you get super creative and or lucky later in the draft at a quarterback, you're going to go in with Michael Penix and be like, let's run it back and hope that it gets better. And, arrow pointing up, and he's essentially, he's a young quarterback and we're still learning. But in terms of our Sumer scores, he scored out right around the same range as JJ McCarthy. And I don't think people are clamoring for, him, even though he might be the guy because they're in the same boat. Like, who else? These quarterbacks aren't growing on trees. This is to a degree kind of like the offensive tackles in LA that the Chargers had to deal with. Like, you lose those two guys and like, you can expect the next guy to be next man up and be good. No, the answer is no to the lower third on our screen. I don't think so. But so if you're John Harbaugh and you're coming off of this situation, why would you go, I'm going to go to Atlanta and I'm going to roll my dice on this quarterback that not his fault. Like, he's certainly trying his hardest, but like, if the quarterback play had been better, Raheem Morris would still be the coach in Atlanta. So like, why walk into that?
Yeah. So some reporting coming in, which, kind of explains his thought process a little bit more. Jordan Schultz is reporting that this was a mutual agreement, quote, to part ways. Sources tell him. Also from The Athletic, as around midday today, everyone thought he was returning. Conversations today with Steve Bisciotti yielded a different result. So it does seem like as of recently, this is more of a Harbaugh saying, like, this isn't the direction I want this franchise to go.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then maybe we have the next coach of the Atlanta Falcons, I suppose.
Yeah, or they just couldn't come to an agreement about like, okay, what's next? Let's figure out the path forward. Is it this? And one guy goes, no, it's not that. I can't do that. Or that's not smart. And
I mean, it's just crazy because you're thinking to yourself, what is the path forward? And the path forward is get your MVP quarterback healthy. Like, that's the path forward. And I just like speaking of you discussing it, Lindsay, of like, these quarterbacks aren't growing on trees. Like, how is that not what do we not know, I guess? But like, even if we don't know all the facts, we know that Lamar Jackson has basically won 3 MVPs. So it's like either there's something drastically different than even what we saw on Sunday night of Lamar becoming Super Lamar in the game and making 3 just miraculous plays down the stretch to basically win a game. And then it doesn't work out for them. Like, even if that is the Lamar we're going to get for the rest of his career, like, that's still, a borderline Pro Bowler. So it's just a question mark of like, what are we missing here is the real question, I suppose.
I do wonder, there is some like hints at, all right, well, if you don't want to move on from your offensive coordinator, like, we still need to make some sort of changes, maybe kind of in that direction. But Sam, as we're continuing our dream casting, just to like, can I get your thoughts on a Cliff Kingsbury as a Lamar Jackson offensive coordinator?
I mean, it's certainly interesting.
Could be fun.
Yeah,
might not be great, but could be fun.
I mean, like, the thing that you get worried about is going into next season, like, how much better is that offensive line than the Commanders' offensive line? Cliff Kingsbury showed an inability, at least this year, to keep Jaden Daniels extremely healthy in a way that I will note Todd Monken has worked to keep Lamar Jackson healthy. Like that, whether that's decreasing the amount of designed runs, whether that's increasing the rush rate over expected, whether that's bringing in Derrick Henry from here we go. Okay. Well, like, I'm intrigued, but I don't know how much different that particularly looks from what we already had, which is a little
name
bit
to watch. They're all names to watch, right? I feel like that's
Cliff Kingsbury, I will note, let's just roll with me here, guys. Cliff Kingsbury basically getting fired from Texas Tech and then getting a head coaching job in the National Football League, then getting fired from that job and getting to work with Caleb Williams at USC, then moving on from that job successfully, even though the Caleb experiment didn't look great the last year. Then moving on to getting a head coach, a offensive coordinating job with Jaden Daniels, getting fired from that job, and then getting to be the head coach of Lamar Jackson.
Maybe the offensive coordinator. Come on. What about a reunion with Mahomes for him? That he knows the guy. Maybe he heads back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Once Nagy leaves to be a head coach.
Like I said, could be interesting.
That would be moving to me personally, but
could be fun.
Would it? Oh, which part of that would be moving? Which part
Patrick
of that?
Mahomes playing in a Andy Reid and Cliff Kingsbury designed offense with some new run game stuff.
I do think Kansas City could use an influx of new ideas.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, get your guys, Titans. I suppose that seems to be a lock. Everyone believes now. Like I wish I could go look at like the Kalshi odds right now and figure out like what Matt Nagy's respective thing is. But anyway, man, like just great news rolling in here from Stopsky and from the insiders. John Harbaugh is expected to emerge as a favorite for the Giants.
Breaking news. Sources say what?
Sources are
to your point
today,
Sean, I don't like that this is becoming us just analyzing the insider language. I'm like, we got that one on our own.
All right, I would like to break news that John Harbaugh is going to be people are going to be interested in him as their head coach. I think I can confidently say that. Let's break that news.
We're terrible people. The point that you made about the Giants having a general manager, they don't have to have a general manager. Like, I'm just saying, and I'm not trying to fire people. But I'm just saying, like, moves like this happen when dominoes start to fall.
Last year, yeah.
I was just talking about Liam Cohen's whole, thing when he left but didn't leave and then left again, and the implications of his interest on the general manager job in Jacksonville. So my guess is that if somebody calls John Harbaugh and they say, "Here's my hang up," they might make that hang up go away. Here's the question. Do you think that there is validity to doing that at this point in his coaching career? Because sometimes, like, I think Bill Belichick's a good example of this. Sometimes, I'm going to be very careful with the words that I'm about to say here. It's not that the game moves by you, but like, it just changes so dramatically that your voice or your style doesn't resonate quite as much. And I thought it was quite obvious his last few years in New England, that maybe that was the case with Belichick. I don't find it as obvious with Harbaugh, but I mean, I suppose it's possible. Like, he's a little bit, I have talked to people who have described him as a little bit old school in his style, and that there are a lot of players in the league who don't like, that. Not necessarily him, but just in general, that doesn't work. I think Belichick's a perfect example of that. Is he somebody that you think is still a guy that you should move heaven and earth for?
Sam's captain culture. I need to hear it from Sam.
Yeah. There's no one who has proven more that they can. There's like two guys who have proven more that they can be a non-play calling head coach. And it's like Mike Tomlin. And that's probably it. Like, you get to a point where you've won so many games in so many different scenarios. And I think it's very unique because Andy Reid has won it, has done it, but it's always been Andy Reid, right? And even when it was Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, it's always been the Andy Reid show. It's very similar with Sean Payton, where like it's still Sean Payton's show. And even with Mike Tomlin, like it's been the same philosophy for so many years. We have seen radically different offenses, radically different players, radically different defenses succeed under John Harbaugh. And I think that's kind of the syntactic sugar here that brings him up in like any number of flexible spaces, is that John Harbaugh, probably more than any coach active in the National Football League right now, has shown that, even probably more than a Bill Belichick in his prime, has shown that he can win despite, a Tyler Huntley having to play a couple games, or a Joe Flacco not throwing the absolute best, or mixing in a Lamar Jackson package with Joe Flacco, or supercharging Lamar Jackson as a runner, or supercharging Lamar Jackson as a passer only. And so I think that's like the grand difficulty I'm having. I mean, multiple different defensive philosophies, defensive ways of teaching through his coordinators, offensive philosophies, pass rates over expected. Like, there's just been so much that has gone on in that tenure that it's difficult to think he wouldn't at least figure out a way to make it work, if not necessarily like achieve maximum success.
Fantastic use of syntactic sugar there, Sam. Really, really special work.
Appreciate that. Well, okay, so
I would have thought to a degree, though, and again, different people, different, but same like era of good coach, like where they're at the top of the game, we're really all in on them. I would have thought that Pete Carroll would at the very least like professionalize the Raiders organization. And it was a mess this year. And I know that it's not the same, but maybe sometimes that doesn't translate at a certain point. Maybe once it stops translating, period. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly worth a shot. Everybody is going to be interested in, at the very least, talking to him and seeing what he thinks about their team, what he would do, all of that kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to see what he sounds like even talking about different rosters and analyzing things about, like, here's what I see and here's how I would approach this. I think it would be fascinating to hear his thoughts about the NFL, even just outside of Baltimore, because we're so used to that being offered up through a very specific prism for such a long time.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's more reporting coming out. Diana Rossini has stated that a key pressure point in the Harbaugh dismissal was his utter refusal to entertain any conversations about potentially moving on from offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Just to give it a sense, Todd Monken has been the offense coordinator for the better part of 2 years now. Todd Monken's kind of MO is that they're going to be one of the lowest pass rate over expected teams. They've been in the negative 7.5% to negative 8% in the past 2 years. That has reaped generally good results. 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson basically led the league in passing EPA. This year, not so much, but this year, Derrick Henry, as he was the year prior, was extremely high up in rushing EPA as well. This is one of the best rushing offenses in the league and was again this year. Sean, is there anything in what was going on with the scheme, the utilization of 12 personnel? That's another MO of Todd Monken as the Ravens offense coordinator. Anything that indicated that things were going in the wrong direction long-term with this group?
I think you could maybe look at it and say, all right, well, it feels like there's kind of a ceiling on this, just because what's your change from kind of year one to year two, where, I mean, 2 years ago, that offense was like, that was dynamite. Like, that was a lot of fun kind of as an overall unit. And of course, it's hard for me where you lose Lamar Jackson for a bunch of games. Like, he's clearly hampered. I do think, at times where Jackson's always going to be a high time to throw type player, and he should be, right? He should be extending plays. Sometimes it feels like, all right, well, like, how many kind of natural openings are we creating for our wide receivers over and over again? So, maybe that's something you look at. Like, do I blame Monken for the offensive line step backs? I'm not sure. I guess probably not, I think. So I could see someone saying, all right, well, we need to get a new voice. Like, we need to, on the offensive side of the ball, like, we need to be able to kind of push this forward where we have so much talent. And if the kind of higher levels are like, hey, Mr. Harbaugh, we're going to have to move on from the OC. Like, is that a move that you make? I think it's like relatively reasonable. It feels like, for the Commanders, for example, right? Like, you have an awesome year 1 year and then you're falling off a little bit. Obviously the Commanders year a lot different than this Ravens year. And then you move on from your coordinator. So I don't think it would be like the most unreasonable thing to like look for another offensive coordinator. Now, I do think, fans across the league would be happy to have Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator.
Detroit has an opening. They fired John Morton earlier today. I would like to read you consecutive tweets in my feed to have you react to. Mina Kimes thinks, she tweeted, I would strongly consider Brian Flores if I were the Ravens.
Could be fun.
Would be of interest depending on how
Kyle Hamilton, the new Harrison Smith. Let's do it.
Yeah. And then also, like, I mean, well documented and probably generally the thing that I always bring up with Flo is that like him and Tua got into it allegedly. And if John Harbaugh really did get into it with Lamar, maybe not the best what is it called? Synergy there. But that's my initial take to number one.
Yeah, we don't know if he did.
And if he did, he's allowed to grow, right? Sam, we can believe in
here.
the growth of human beings, right? Can't we?
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the biggest thing here. And then it's like, yeah, if I was the 3-time MVP, I'd probably want more things my way too. Especially when I'm the number one MVP who is the whole offense for the most part. Like, this is a quarterback's league. It's a quarterback's league. And if I'm a quarterback who believes that I've been screwed over by the entire league, literally, it's been proven at this point because of like some emails, and then I'm coming into work every day and they're trying to change stuff and say like, oh, well, we got to get the ball out of your hands and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no, actually you don't. And you know how you know you don't? Because we've been the 1 seed 3 times and I'm a 3-time MVP, basically.
How do you get the ball out of his hands?
I don't know.
What does that conversation even look like? I don't even understand it. We'll get there. You go.
This is what I'm turning into, Stosky.
I've got another one here. Unless you want me to, well, Stopsky put up that one. I think we read that. No, I'm talking about the one about him not being able to inform his staff. So Jeff Zrebiak reporting that John Harbaugh didn't get a chance to inform his staff of his firing is proof of how quickly this all went down. Neither side was prepared for this outcome. Today, Ravens team president Sashi Brown and general manager Eric DaCosta informed Harbaugh's staff of his departure. That's insane. This is so wild. This is like, I feel like I'm like back in my early reporting, like spot news coverage, just, throwing everything at the fan because this is wild. Okay. So we said Mina says Brian Flores. Dan Orlovsky tweeted the Cardinals should hire Harbaugh tonight.
Does John Harbaugh want to go to the Cardinals tonight?
Well, that's my immediate follow-up. Like, why would he go there?
I think we should be less surprised about him getting fired. I think that they're like,
okay.
He's been there for so long.
Are you getting like DMs right now saying like, why are you guys so surprised?
I'm absolutely not getting any DMs. No, but I feel like we talked about it. It's like, oh, well, like, are the Steelers going to move on from Tomlin? Are the Ravens going to move on from Harbaugh? Like, you start to feel it. It's like, well, it's going to happen eventually, right? Like, you cannot coach on a team forever. It's not going to happen. Like, the only thing that's guaranteed is that you're going to get fired eventually, right? Or you step away, or you mutually agree to part, however you want to word it. So, like, it was going to happen eventually. And it's not just putting out this. I don't think it came down to that field goal. Like, I still feel like, all right, well.
Yes, it did. If they were playing this week, there's no chance that he is. Well, he's not.
He's not
getting
going to get fired
now
before the playoff game. I can guarantee that. If he wins the Super Bowl, I think he'd be fine. But like there were clearly issues. Like, there were multiple reported like conflicts between your like solid head coach, your structural figure, and your multi MVP quarterback. Like that is coming to a head. Like, they were underachieving kind of as a whole. So I mean, I'm more than happy to just totally be wrong on my hypothetical there. But yeah, just feel like, all right, well, like, this was in the realm of possibilities. Like, this wasn't like obviously, yes, it's surprising, but I think it's less of like a, whoa, like, we need to, like, this is a firing of the century kind of type thing.
I disagree. And here's why I disagree. And this is what it comes down to me as a data scientist all the time. And I know people are like, well, you can't factor that into your decision-making and blah, blah, blah. What is the Ravens win total next year?
I don't think you think it's going to shift down?
Yeah.
But like substantially with Lamar Jackson?
No, not substantially. But I'm just saying that like the win total
it's less stable.
Right. And so I think like the win total with John Harbaugh is probably slightly more than it was without.
Okay, Mr. Market. I mean, he can tell us what to do here. I can get on board with that. Yeah, but like I said, it's like, sometimes the voice it wears a little thin.
Yeah.
I'm more interested to see what the team that he ends up going to, how much does the win total kind of bump up there? And then like, because there are segments of the feed that will say, all right, well, he's not calling plays. Like, how long is it going to take for him to kind of turn things around? Like, yes, you have the solid figure, but like for Vrabel, for example, this year with the Patriots, you go to a place with a really strong quarterback, and you're bringing an offensive coordinator with you. So I think Harbaugh's Rolodex is going to be super thick, but I'm curious. I'm curious what his staff ends up looking like too.
I think the reason that I'm surprised too, though, is because like when Belichick was fired, I was not at all surprised. I thought it was telegraphed. I thought it felt like the right time to move on. I don't think that we have seen outward signs of, and maybe people in Baltimore have, but it hasn't gotten to the point where it's super obvious that there is a disconnect that just is completely not working anymore.
Well,
Like
this is our evidence, I would suppose.
100%. But I'm saying like in the other cases we knew that ahead of time. In this case, I think we had Lamar Jackson clearly hurt all season. Like we knew he was hurt, right? He was missing time because he was hurt. There was discussion about when he was practicing because he was hurt. So we didn't even have to just completely guess about whether or not he was hurt. It's to what degree is he hurt? Is that why he's playing the way that he is? Is that why the offense looks the way that it does? And so that kind of leaves this big like question mark over it all, I suppose. The defense I think is probably the thing that's actually a bigger problem. The fact that the defense in Baltimore has been strong for so long and hasn't been like the passing defense in particular the last couple of years, right? Like 22nd in EPA per pass. That's not what you're known for in Baltimore. And this was a problem last year and it didn't get fixed. And so maybe that is kind of the sign that like they just didn't have the answers. They didn't know how to fix it.
Bring in the defensive play caller. Let's get the Ravens at the top of the division and we move on forward.
Oh boy, you guys. In the first 45 minutes, according to Adam Schefter, after John Harbaugh was fired this afternoon, his agent said he received calls from 7 NFL teams.
I'm glad we have a lawyer on here because there's some differing language here.
I was about to say.
There is
language.
Purposeful language here. Adam follows up with there are currently 7 NFL head coaching openings, including Baltimore, which means at least one team has reached out about hiring him that has not fired their coach yet.
There currently are 7 NFL head coach openings. I thought there were 6. Well, I guess the Ravens counts as one, right?
Yeah, including Baltimore.
Maybe Baltimore reached out and was like, hey, will you come in for an interview? Let's talk about this, John. Can you be the special teams coordinator again? Let's talk about it.
Just imagining like so like let's just like summarize some of the consensus here. Number one, seems like this wasn't a planned thing. It was a possibility, but it wasn't like we're going to sit down, we're going to let you go, we're going to let you clean out your stuff and talk to your boys, and then au revoir. Like no mas in Baltimore. Like it was clearly something that happened quickly. It's unclear who kind of threw the stone in the water, but it's clear that coming from the agent, it was mutual, and coming from the team, he was probably fired. And so it's unclear on that. And then finally, like, there's rumblings about Lamar Jackson. There's rumblings about the defense. And there's rumblings about the offensive coordinator, both in the step of potentially getting hired for a head coaching position and getting fired. So lots to parse through here in the next hours. Very interesting.
The last thing I want to do as we wrap this up is recap the names of the head coaching candidates that we talked about yesterday. Not go into all of the details about them, just recap the names, because that is at the crux of my surprise, is that we are going through a cycle right now where I don't think there are enough impressive candidates to fill the vacancies that existed yesterday. And now there's one more. And there's no doubt that they move to the front of the line and they get the best guy. Like, this is the best job available. And all of the other teams that already fired their coaches are super bummed that this job just became available, because now the trickle down will come from Baltimore. But I just don't think there's that guy that's obviously like that guy that you got to go get this cycle. Jason Garrett's interviewing with the Titans.
I mean, you could definitely see them bring in Flores or Minter, and they bring in a competent offensive coordinator with them, and they win 11 games next year. That's just like 100%. Like, yeah. I mean, I think that's almost like the most realistic outcome.
You could see anyone, though. Like you could see anyone coming in and winning 11 games. It's kind of a
situation. It's a good situation to be in.
I mean, hey, look, Joe Brady, we've discussed it for years. Could he be a head coach? Does he want to stick with Josh Allen? It's your time to go be great, brother.
We're going great quarterback to great quarterback. What a thrill.
You've managed Joe Burrow, a young Joe Burrow. You've managed Baker and Sam Darnold. You've managed some of these other guys. Like, your time to go be great as a head coach in Baltimore, bub. Like, go bring Lamar Jackson another MVP, and everyone will be excited for you.
We're going to hear about every single game next year. We're going to hear about it. They should have fired Harbaugh. They shouldn't have fired Harbaugh. It's going to be fascinating.
Well, we'll see. I think I'm with Shock Money here in the comments saying that he should go coach the Giants. I think that's where, now that I've had like an hour or so to like get used to this idea, I think that is the job that feels the best to me for him.
I'm rooting for the Browns for content. Keep them in division.
No, thank you.
Hey, and the Ravens did want to pick Shador.
Fair. I would like, as an organizational figure in Tennessee,
Perfect
just like
timing.
seeing Cam Ward through that part of his career. Like I could get behind that too.
All right. Thank you for being with us. We'd love to continue hearing your thoughts on our social media handles at Sumer Sports everywhere you look. We'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think John Harbaugh should go, who you think Baltimore should go get, who your favorite candidate is there in terms of the pieces that are there and the guy that is best to work with them, and what this does for the trickle down, right? Like, because this does a lot for this coaching carousel's trickle down. This just blew it all up. So we've got a lot to think about for the weeks ahead. Thank you so much for being with us as we made sense of our own thoughts live on the air. This has been the Sumer Sports Show live breaking news edition.